Yay. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Kellita.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have you here and to introduce you to the world that is hearing and or seeing us whenever that might be, and to have to get to talk with you about some of the cards in this emerging deck that I'm creating, the Showgirl Awakening deck, because your fingerprints are all throughout this deck, and we're going to look at a few cards that would never be a card and would not be even concepts that I have had I not been lucky enough to meet you and NLP Marin. So, world, Carla Camou is a master NLP trainer at NLP Marin, and do you feel like this is totally a? Do you feel like giving just a little stab at what is NLP for those people who are hearing, wait, what did she say, NLP?
NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And there are a whole bunch of different ways to describe it. The way I like to describe it best, it is the working with the patterning that goes on inside of us. And it's all the patterning that runs on your unconscious level. So we work at a level with stuff that, if anything that you could have already thought your way out of, talked with a friend about, or processed your way out of, you already would. So these are the programs that set up and that kind of run our lives. And most of this programming gets locked in pretty young, but it is the unconscious patterning that goes on inside of us, and it all is based off of what worked at some point in our life. But where we find it difficult now is in the areas where it is no longer working as well as it used to. And so the study of NLP is learning how to work with those programs and shift them so that we can reveal and be more of who we truly are.
Yes. So without having all of that language and exact perspective, I had been doing my best to do just that. And one way that I did it, in addition to some traditional therapy and some other EFT, and a primary way that the term we use is change work, just how it sounds, something, a practice or a way of updating and changing these patterns that have been running underground, was and is my work with dance and performance. And so this deck that I'm actually going to show to Carla for the first time, and all of you who happen to be seeing this, I know some of you who are only hearing, I apologize. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to pop right in here. Here is the deck. Can you see it, Carla?
Okay. I have to put my glasses on to see it. Okay, cool. Cool.
There's 58 cards, and they're all on one page, and I may zoom in a little so you can see some. But for this moment, I'm going to show this top row, all of these. This is the suit of movement. I'll zoom in a little so you can see.
Got it. Yep.
Movement. You see that? And those are the core movements that I discovered after 10 years of choreographing with these same movements, shimmies and shakes and extensions. I discovered the medicine of them, and I now actually apply them and use them medicinally and with intention. So I was
wow, okay.
Less than consciously using these movements for change. And much later, this is the suit of the archetypes, the purple. And these are a reimagining of old Hollywood archetypes of the ingenue and the vixen, and the amuser really is the trickster, the bombshell, the muse. And while in these in the old movies, it's my opinion that the way that these archetypes were expressed were in a collapsing or a posturing way, and not an alive and well way. So I reimagined what would be the archetype when she's has rapport with self. We're going to talk about rapport when she's really living in the center of herself. And these 3 suits are the 3 pillars of Showgirl Awakening. The revel suit, reveling in your body, knowing what is the information, what are my feelings, what are my sensations. And these are a bunch of notes. Rapport is one of them. And the revealing is the second pillar, which is revealing your radiant essence and the other notes of that. And then the Holy Grail, which I'm very much still working on, is receiving what you desire. Those 3 R's. And we're going to zoom in on this card shortly. Rapport. But we're also, I'm going to zoom over here. This suit is the frames, and I really mean like the frames of eyeglasses. Like if you were putting on, each one is a different pair of glasses through which to see the world, and each one has a massive impact on how we see ourselves and how we relate and be in the world. And we're going to look at a couple of those. One is drip drip trauma versus boom boom trauma, because Carla, I think it was Carl who head trainer at NLP Marin. I think I heard him say in an offhanded way that the boom boom trauma and the drip drip trauma, and it impacted me so much. But it was what you said about it. I'll press a little pause
Okay, yeah.
when we get there, but it has changed that concept. Just getting that giving everything different. And we just may get around to this one as well. Pleasure and play versus reward and punishment.
Okay.
Yay. So that is what, yeah, we're going to boogie off of this right now. And the mystery at the center of all, not relegated to any suit, is the mystery. Before we jump, I'm going to show you this. We don't have yet a beautiful representation, but this is a hand-drawn version, the first version of the mandala of how all the cards relate to each other.
Wow.
It would be a circular, so you can actually, like, I'm understanding the relationship between the cards differently from the circle of like, oh, that's across from that, and that's a combination of that and that. So, but I'm going to stop this share, and yay. This word, which for me now is happily, it's a part of, I'm just so happy that I know it, and I have such a strong felt sense of it. But to define rapport in the way that I've come to know it through working with you and NLP Marin, I'm going to pass. Would you mind, because you probably have a really great short.
I don't know that I have a great short statement for what rapport is. The way we begin to think about rapport is we think about rapport as a connection and a forming some kind of a level of safety with. When we initially teach people in NLP Marin about rapport, we're teaching them how to communicate with the critter part of the brain that does fight or flight, that the person is physically safe. But as that evolves and we continue to build on the rapport, it is about kind of a coming into one with and a comfort and an allowance of oneself.
Ooh, I just want to repeat that. A coming into, what was that, did you say?
Oh, good question.
Okay. We can hear that later. It's close. The term that I use a lot is, which might be a slightly different thing, is being in the center of myself. It doesn't.
There's an at peace with that has all of that incorporated into it.
Yeah.
When we are in rapport with another person, there is all communication is possible. There is a connection, and there is an ease, and there is a comfort. It isn't necessarily a like. It's not about like and dislike, but it's about safety and a certain level of acceptance. Not accepting of bad behavior, not that way, but just of a presence with.
Not resisting.
And not resisting is a good way to put it. Yeah, when you kind of go out in the levels of rapport, there is kind of a an inclusion of all. But that's a pretty advanced version of rapport. But just we talk a lot about rapport with self, which is feeling aligned with and feeling an ease with yourself.
And I'll name that, you know, a rapport with all the feelings that I might have, even if they're contradicting each other, rather than I might be angry and sad, and maybe I've had angry live in the back. I've had no rapport with anger and only rapport with sad. This never happened to me. Haha.
Right.
Yes.
Never happened to anybody,
No.
really.
But that all the that all of myself, I mean, I think of
A really good way of putting it is that ceasing to fight with yourself.
Yeah.
It's the absence of that need to fight or resist. And it's really hard. We don't really have a great word for what it is when you have ceased to resist yourself. But we spend so much time resisting ourselves and resisting what we're experiencing that as we come into more and more rapport with ourselves, there is an acceptance of who we are that is not, it includes the drive to be more and to improve without the making wrong.
Oh, I love that. Includes the drive to be more.
To be more and to improve.
And to improve, and
without making ourselves wrong. Without a make wrong. So a lot of people think of acceptance as kind of a
condoning.
A condoning, but also just like a kind of a giving up.
Oh yeah, like you got me, I'm not gonna, that's it, I'm tired now.
Or just accepting your life the way it is, kind of, right? But you can accept your life the way it is and still want more. You can have rapport with yourself. You can be fully okay with who you are and still want to improve, to grow, to reach, and to expand who you are.
That state, those two together, I would say, I don't think I had any cultural or social reference for that.
It is one of our main,
very hard to
it is one of those main NLP tenets, but that we are so taught to overcome, to better ourselves by defeating ourselves.
Yeah.
And the question that I love is, so when you defeat yourself, who wins?
Who wins? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the alternative is to be in rapport with yourself. And there is a natural thing that happens. The more you are in rapport with yourself, the more you are in rapport with life.
And, and everyone else.
Yeah.
And the people that you disagree with or don't like, or there is just this extension of rapport. Yeah.
And you can still disagree and dislike. It's an interesting thing, but there is not a need to fight it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't exclude fighting for social justice. It doesn't, it doesn't exclude any of those actions, but those actions are done from a different space.
They're done from a different place. Yeah.
Where they're about evolving and moving things forward without defeating anyone in particular or defeating anything. I
like the phrase that I've used a lot, is ending the war with self. That's just so much simplicity and often that war is so much the forest that we're in that we don't recognize it as a war. So the first one, we just nose up out of it, it's wait a minute because this pushing against,
we often push so hard we don't recognize that what we're pushing against is ourself.
Yeah.
And
just hearing that right now, it's even landing more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it feels like it's our world, and so we push against our world. And when we get a chance to slow down and be with ourselves in a way where we're not attempting to defeat ourselves, we start to recognize that everything we've been fighting out in the world is a reflection of something we're fighting inside. And that as the fight inside begins to end and the peace begins to settle in inside, the world outside of us begins to feel more peaceful.
Yeah.
And much more manageable.
I wish that we had a word, because I've looked for it before, and if you think of it, tell me, a word for peace that had more vitality in it, or more color, because somehow it almost it just doesn't feel rich enough to refer to that state. But
we think of peace as a lack of movement.
yes, I clock it as a lack of movement, and so I'm looking for the word that has the quality.
I think that word is rapport, but we just haven't used it enough to have enough resonance with it.
Yeah.
To feel the active and the movement that goes into that word. There's a depth to that word that is hard to bring alive with language and much easier to bring alive in kind of your body.
Yeah, well, yeah, having that felt sense of it. Yeah, I can definitely identify it on the body level.
But there is a space that a dancer goes to when they are no longer paying any attention to how the outside perceives them. And they are moving in a certain kind of just ease with their body, and it's expressing, and they're not actually trying to hold anything back, and there's a movement that's allowed. And that's a point where the dancer has come into rapport with themselves and with their movement. And most people experience those in brief moments, like in a performance, they'll have a couple moments where they have that, right? And to me, that's a rapport, and that's kind of that's the really, really sweet spot of it. But when you begin to learn how to live your life from that space, and the thing that's really beautiful about it is no matter how you find it, if you find it through classes, or you find it through dance, or you find it through meditation, every time you find it, your neurology locks in that's findable.
Yeah.
And then is able to continually reproduce it more often. It's like, so the more times you accidentally bump into it, the more available it becomes.
I love that you mentioned that, about that one of the ways to find the rapport with self, if you're using dance, is to not notice the outside. And I, in an additional way, I use those few minutes, and I did those few minutes, because a typical solo or troupe dance was maybe 3 to 5 minutes a piece. That was my gym to practice being in the center of myself, but specifically also engaging the other. So I upped the stakes.
It's a natural part of the more rapport you are with yourself, the more the connection just happens. It's not something that is based on approval or liking or anything. It just happens because it is like, so when you are dancing and you find that in yourself, although for a moment you've cut the audience out, the minute you find it, you're actually one with the audience in so many ways at the same time.
Yes, and reflecting, and well, I would say there's two kinds. Like, I know the way that I learned dance when I was younger, and actually know lots of professional dancers who are very, there's one, you can use dance with or without a fourth wall. When it's, I'm doing movements to express a beautiful thing and to show shapes and the emotions moving, but it's mostly like, if you go to the ballet, or if you go somewhere where you see almost like a tableau is being created, look at the moving bodies, but there isn't the direct, like, the dancer isn't doing like, and I'm looking at you. When that doesn't happen, so there's a lot of performance that the individuals may be in beautiful rapport with themselves, but they aren't practicing on purpose the dyad piece. And what has always had my attention, and this may lead us into the boom boom drip drip card, is the dyad, is the I call it like being seen on my own terms, both inside myself, intrapersonally, so that I'm actually seeing myself as I am and choose to be, and as I am emerging, and whoever I'm consenting to see me,
Yeah.
whoever, like giving that permission, that I'm actually checking myself every second of, am I still here? Cool, yay. Is there something more I have to share? But checking in on the level of, so that I don't dissociate. So that's how it's been my gym for, can I be present with and in myself and with you? And how can I did this without being able to articulate it, for like, can I choose? How am I dealing with the consent of how much I'm letting the other in? I mean, literally into my space. So all these things that I learned later, I won't share all the terminology because I don't want to send people going, wait, what did she say there? There's a lot of things we could unpack, but I was practicing these things as I learned words with you, Carla, back through performing in that way. And I still do, because it's a fun way for me to do it. Yeah, is that how much, did I actually is all my information now, the gaze that I'm letting in, and like, am I still here? It's a little hard to talk about some of this, but it's just been a practice. Can I be here, and can I be seen and contribute and connect with the other, whoever, if it's a group of people or a single person? Do you have a question around that?
I don't have a question around that. I just, well, maybe it is a question, because I just, I kind of wonder what's going to happen if you switch the question from, am I still here? And can I let this in, to something like, how much of this can I let in?
Oh, yes, the how much. Thank you. I like that shift of question. Yeah.
Switching it from the yes, no answer.
Yeah.
Am I still here?
Yeah.
Like, how much of me is here?
Yeah.
But presupposing that you're there, because you are there.
Well,
I know some of you dissociate. Some of you leave your body, right? But the question changes it. How much? Because you can still say, how much of me is here? You can say 0%. Oh, maybe I want to put that up to 10%.
Right.
But it has the suggestion of something with a little bit more flexibility and variability, and presupposes a little bit more power in you.
Thank you. And I'm sure there is some meaning to how I said that there, because I probably was tracking myself in a place where that didn't feel accessible. But I like to talk about the control panel that gets set on default of, it might be set that I only get to show up 10%. Oh, this is perfect segue into boom, boom, drip, drip. I love it. So if I have on default and it's not moving, that I only get to be here 10%, I know that actually all I have to do is go, oh, well, I'm going to turn it up to 30. And I don't have to use my fingers. I can just do it with my consciousness, which is what your question is inviting, is for me to remember. With my own consciousness, I can allow myself to come, oh, yeah. Oh, okay, I'm up at 50. Oh, no, now I'm in a different room and I'd prefer to be down at 10. That it is, can be set almost on auto-regulate according to rapport with self. Does it feel good to be seen in this room? Cool.
And that might be the other question in there, which is, how much do I want to be here? How much of me do I want to bring here?
Yes.
as opposed to can I be here, right?
Oh, you're right. You're getting that permission piece. But
I know we
we
might have to talk
talk
permission.
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
But the preset that there's any particular way that is the correct way to be.
Yeah.
Is part of just that safety patterning that we're moving towards talking about, that's set up like there's being what you're supposed to be and being what you want to be and being what you're comfortable being. And rapport with self is honoring what you want and what you're comfortable with. And so like we might want to be there 100%, but what we're really comfortable with is 55.
Yeah.
And letting that be just fine.
Yeah.
Or
realizing, hey, I don't want to be in this room at all.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Wait a minute. I might want to be in another county.
This is not what I wanted.
It's a big one.
Yeah, but there is just a checking in with self that goes with a rapport with self, which is knowing. It's knowing yourself and allowing yourself to get to know yourself, and allowing your mistakes to be pieces of information as opposed to failures. So if you show up a little more than you're comfortable, it's not a failure. It's just, oh, okay, so maybe I want to dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe I want to come forward a little bit more. Or maybe I want to come forward a little bit more and it's not available physically for me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to honor the desire and the inability simultaneously, so that I can that place of like, I know this is what I want and it's not exactly available.
Yeah.
I want to put on the performance of my life, but I am so stiff that it's not going to happen, you know.
Right.
And I'm going to honor myself enough to know that if I push my body, that's going to hurt, right? And
there felt like there were tendrils that could take us to boom boom versus drip drip, and then there was a moment where I really wanted to go in the this is a meaty one. It's the pleasure and play versus reward and punishment. I actually want to focus in just on the reward and punishment. It's really reward. Well, this is a phrase that I know through NLP Marin, and it's another big game changer. It's that we do not live in a rewarding or a punishing universe. We live in a mirroring universe. And all of this looking that's so deeply ingrained in all humans. And then as we find more rapport with self, we can peek up above to what other possibilities, if I'm not managing my behavior or myself in a way to avoid being punished, and I'm not doing it in order to get a reward. This is just like, this is PhD territory. Because in subtle and gross ways, that is the only thing that keeps me or anyone from just, I like to use the language, from just radiating our essence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we begin to try and teach children how to be productive members of society, we teach them rewards and punishments.
Yeah.
As ways of motivating. And it is a developmental shift to move from that to something that is watching out for and tracking one's own well-being and that of each other. The rules that we live by when we're little, don't pull hair,
right?
You know, those kinds of things, are meant for us to learn to be able to function with each other in a way that works for us as a community. And it's very easy to know that you're doing okay if you're following the rules and you're getting rewarded and not punished.
Yeah.
When you remove reward and punishment, what's left is you got to know yourself.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to respond, and in a way that is responsible, that's able to respond for your needs and your well-being. And
Yeah.
when you are in rapport with yourself and you're taking care of your own well-being, you are naturally looking out for the well-being of everybody around you.
Yeah.
Because when you're truly in rapport with yourself, doing something at the cost of someone else feels wrong. Doing something that harms another person feels wrong. And so harming someone else is moving out of rapport with yourself. So when you are in rapport with yourself and you're following and taking care of your own well-being, you are naturally adding to the well-being of others. But
Yeah.
there is no right or wrong in there, and an emotion or an action that in one situation can seem so wrong and so out of rapport, in another situation can be, in a different context, can be completely appropriate.
Can you think of an example, Carla?
If we think of an example like some kind of physical harm, so hitting
Mhm.
someone,
Oh,
in
yeah.
almost every example, that is inappropriate.
Yeah.
But if somebody is about to take the life of your child, it might be totally appropriate.
That makes it
And it
very,
might be in rapport with who you are, and it is, you know, it is a deterrent to get somebody to not harm the life of your child.
yeah.
So if we have rules that all violence is wrong, we are locked into a position where in the right place to defend,
Yeah.
we make ourselves wrong. And in other places, it's so
Yeah.
the adult world is not a clear set of right and wrong rules. We have rules we live by as a society, but this is different.
Yeah.
When you give somebody attention and what kind of attention you give them and how you interact with them is really about knowing yourself, knowing what's appropriate for you, and knowing what is an appropriate interaction with the other person. And appropriate feel is a sense of like a rightness in you and a right and a connection with them and an understanding of their world enough to know what's right for them. Not that you deem this is right for you, but to know, like, to be able to respond to their response to you.
Yeah.
Those rules of behavior are really different. Kellita, when you and I are in the same place, there are certain ways that I can touch you that I would never touch a stranger.
Right. Right.
And maybe not even other students, but I do know that I can come up from behind, wrap my arms around you, and you will just lean into me, and it's appropriate. It's
Right.
part
Right.
of our communication with each other.
That's true.
But there are other students that if I do that with, they would freak out because for them it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? For you, it is, I am included and I love this and I've
Yeah.
gotten your permission and I know this.
Yeah.
If I have rules about what is the appropriate way to approach anyone,
Right.
then I will fall short in making the connection with some people that they need, and I will cross other people's boundaries and go too far in for what they're comfortable with. But if I am constantly responding, I'm paying attention to what I'm seeing outside, how they're responding, and I'm paying attention to what I'm willing to do and not do, then we can, through a little bit of,
A little bit of
checking,
this. Yeah. A little back and
right,
forth.
where we might cross the boundary a tiny bit and go, oh, that makes you uncomfortable, okay, I'll come
Yeah.
back a quarter inch.
Yeah.
We can maneuver and find it out. Now, it's much more confusing. You'll never know exactly for sure. You will make mistakes.
Yeah.
You will have to apologize sometimes or clarify
Yeah.
or, right? That's the adult world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be punishment. And there isn't a reward. There isn't necessarily a reward for doing it right, but it is a really different set of rules.
I hope this is clear to people listening that this level of reward and punishment. We're not walking around thinking those terms. It's more subtle, but very real and happening in nearly every thought we have. Like, am I going to answer this email first or that email first? On these little ways. Am I?
Was it wrong to ask that question? Was it wrong to say
Oh
that?
God, that I
Is
have.
it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I, like, we're on that question, is it okay or was that wrong? Run all the time in so much of what
all
we
the time.
do.
Yeah.
And that is our looking for reward and punishment. We are looking for an outside source to tell us. And it's part of the trying to stay out of getting in trouble or earn a higher place in some status somewhere. When we're kids, it's being the best child in the classroom or not the worst one, right? There's just a, like, keeping on mom's good side because she's got a hangover today, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that I can almost trace to at least one instance as a child that's kind of an emblem for me of where this my nature is I have as my nature an empathy and a caretakiness, and just as my nature, but then overlaid on top of that became, I think I started um, noticing how that landed, and that got big stars. That got big stars in some, I'll just say some areas of my life. And so this nature, which was just this pure sounds, it's not quite the right word, but I just this unsullied, this not looking for. I know that there's a big piece, it's the not looking for, okay, I want to be rewarded for reaching out, I want to be, it's not that, but it got mixed in with some of that.
When it gets rewarded, whenever any of our behavior gets rewarded, we do like the feel of being rewarded, so we do tend to try and repeat the behavior.
And then a little bit lost, because then I over time, this over years, started exaggerating.
Right.
The part that didn't feel so good, but it was so similar to a part that I knew as me that it was a big bummer.
The first time we're rewarded, it's quite a surprise, and it's really wonderful. And we will chase that kind of that newness forever. It's like when you taste something you've never tasted before, and that first bite is so amazing.
Oh yeah.
And it's never quite the same again because it's never a surprise again.
But we keep.
It's really good, but we keep going for it, right? And or we try and we go back to the same restaurant, or we take everybody we can and try and get them to taste it so that they can have the experience, so vicariously we can have the experience. So child does something, child's naturally giving, caring, they do something and they get rewarded, and maybe they get over rewarded.
Yeah, maybe.
The child will then repeat the behavior because the reward felt good, and the behavior was a relatively natural behavior.
Yeah.
And they will get rewarded again. And after a while, the reward kind of, the amount of the reward goes down a little bit, just because it's starting to become an expected behavior. Mm-hmm. If every time you go to visit grandpa, you go give him a big hug, you run across the room and give him a big hug, the first time you do it, he is overjoyed. He just can't believe his grandchild was that happy to see him. After the 20th time, he's just kind of standing there expecting it, ready, right? And sometimes it's just a perfunctory, hi, how you doing, kiddo? Because it's like, really, the kid's going to make a big fuss again. So now the kid's going to overdo it a little bit more. They're going to exaggerate to get the same kind of reward. Yeah. And that exaggeration continues to build.
I hadn't looked at it from that side. Huh.
So they will keep exaggerating to get more reward, and the adults will tend to reward to get the behavior to continue. So it's a but what's not in there is the teaching the child to check to see if they're available to give it.
Oh, wait, the checking to see if the child is available to give it. Yeah.
Teaching the child to check themselves, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, teaching.
So if a child acts sympathetically towards another child, they get a lot of reward in the classroom.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then the teacher starts expecting that child to be sympathetic to the other children. And they'll sometimes seat the troubled child near the sympathetic child.
Oh yeah.
Right? But nobody has checked to see what the cost on the child that's being sympathetic is. It might have been an honest gesture once, but not something they intended to take up as a career.
Right.
And right, there is like a,
yeah,
maybe the child had a really, like, mom got up early and made this really super special breakfast because mom was in a really good mood, and it was a gorgeous morning, and the kid got to school, and the kid near them was upset, and they just had so much love overflowing that they offered it. But the next day, when it's expected of them, it was a really bad morning at home, and the kid actually is kind of hurting inside, but they got so much reward from being sympathetic that they're going to do it again, right? So it just kind of, it builds.
It becomes identity. It becomes, my identity is I am the empathetic, caretaking one who, and then we literally begin to smell like it. And I say smell on purpose because, and we start to attract other people who are, oh, I can smell that person.
I'm the responsible one. I'm the strong one. I'm the willing one, right? The kid that like will always take the worst of the chores.
Or on the opposite, or I'm the more negative. Well, they're all negative in a way because they're confining, but the ones, I don't think someone would say
I'm the bully.
Yeah, I guess I'm the bully.
The bully gets locked in.
Yeah.
You know, a bully, it's really awful for a bully when everybody's afraid of you. It's awful when they're not. But when nobody actually wants to ask you to play because you're a bully, the only way you get to engage is to bully.
Yeah, it's lonely.
It's very lonely to maintain that position. Yeah, I'm the class clown. I don't have an option. Everybody expects me to do something funny and pull the teacher's attention away so that they can pass notes. I'm the one that's supposed to always be getting in trouble so that the rest of my classmates can interact with each other.
Yeah.
I'm
wanting to, on that card where we really looked at the bottom, which is the reward and punishment, the other way and how I've practiced is actually discovering, and I like to use like just my body in a very tactile way, like does literally, one hand is touching the other if you can't see this. Does this feel good? Does it feel good? And not coming in with it. Maybe I touch something like, I happen to have a feather right here. You know, does that?
Of course you have a feather right there. I'd be so disappointed if there wasn't one within reach.
It's not always within reach, but it was. So does that feel nice? Without presupposing, like, does this taste nice? Like, senses on that level are they're easier to track for me than emotions. And just actually testing to know what actually does feel good. If as the reward and punishment, as that is loosening and I'm allowed to find out, oh my gosh, what do I actually enjoy? You know, just to even know it, and then to take another step. Even you were talking about two people and finding how two people, what's the amount of contact? Well, it's also just me and the world. Like, oh, do I want to be in water more? Maybe I've not lived by the ocean and not had a pool and not had a bathtub, and I don't even know I love to sit in hot water or cold water. It's just coming back to absolute basics of the senses.
Well, it's the self-discovery here.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the being able to take a moment and just ask what does or doesn't feel good.
Yes.
And that the physical sensations are a really good way to begin to know that.
Yeah.
Right. And to always to kind of to be able to actually answer for yourself. Do I like this? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Same with everything, playing with the volume of music,
Yeah.
playing with the type of music, um,
How much
same with
salt on the food?
how much salt on the food. Yes. And sometimes what you have to do is push that boundary a tiny bit to find out. I
Yeah.
like it until here it gets too salty, and here it's not enough salt. There's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't like salt. I can't imagine that, but I know there are people who don't. It's our physical senses are a really good way to begin to know ourselves. And the more we get in touch with the physicality of what we do and don't like,
Yeah.
then we start to be able to notice, because when we have emotions, our
Yeah.
body tenses in different ways. And we can use that body tension to
Yeah.
begin to notice the signals that our body is giving us in terms of what the emotions are,
Yeah.
and being able to know oneself. We don't spend a lot of time teaching kids that it's to know themselves.
No, this is true. This is true. It's much more, it's preloaded. It's, oh, and the
To be
children just soaking up and learning, oh, just like I was saying, okay, I'm gonna do again that thing that I I felt like one day. Yeah.
um, but we often tell children, eat this, you'll like it.
Yeah.
Um, and if they ate a lot of it one time, we inform them that they do like it. We've seen them eat it, we know they like it. Well, tastes change, and we don't know what happened necessarily. They might have eaten something and liked it, and then their body told them a day or two later it wasn't great.
Right. Their stomach,
And
their digestion decided that. Yeah. Yeah.
and it might be that they don't know it, consciously they don't know it, but intuitively they recoil at a food that we saw them at one point like. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just that they've decided they don't like certain colors, and that's a different thing. That's just a stage kids get to go through.
But if it's a food or something, yeah, that's
No,
more
they do it with food sometimes too. They just decide they won't eat anything red. It's like
okay.
it often is just a phase they go through, but some kids will hold on to it for a while. It's frustrating for parents because it's hard to handle because it doesn't have a logic. But there is a allowing children a chance to get to know themselves and to make some of the decisions for themselves within parameters. A parent's job is to keep them safe. As adults, when we haven't had much opportunity as little ones to know what we do and don't like, it is useful sometimes to just take a moment and notice if we like things,
Yeah. I think
and notice.
really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, there are people that have there's professions built around this. A lot of the sex therapist is about
Huh.
helping retrain people to know what their body does and doesn't like, and especially with couples, teaching the couples to let go of a lot of their assumptions about what their partner likes and doesn't like, and what they like and what they don't like. And a lot of couples get into a dysfunction sexually because
They've decided.
they've decided, or they've in the beginning thought this is what I'm supposed to like, so I will just go with it. And they've never said to their partner, I've never actually liked that.
Mhm.
Or this actually kind of hurts, but I always just endure this because it hurts, right? And so after you get enough of those built up, there becomes a dysfunction between the couple because they don't actually know a way for their bodies to communicate the love they feel for each other,
Oh, that makes so much sense.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so one of the things that has to be done is there has to be a whole retraining of what are the ways that I like to be touched, what are the ways you like to be touched, what are the ways that I like to touch you, and what are the ways you like to touch me. Those are
Mhm.
4 different variables,
That's, yeah, we could make a grid.
right? And having to relearn all of that, especially after you've been in a relationship for a while, can be a little challenging because,
Was humbling.
well, this has like always worked. Why? Okay, now what? I don't even know how to like hold hands properly.
I,
Um,
I this is analogous to how I work with women in creating, facilitating them creating their own self-sourced burlesque solo, and it just starts with little improvisations of, we might think, oh my God, I can't let you see me. You know, I can't. but then discovering that if you're in uh, a space where, coming back to the rapport with self, where the rapport with self is rather high in who's doing the seeing, it can actually feel good. And you only find out by like, okay, you know, the raising the arms up in a V, it's very opening, it's very vulnerable. But I mean, I just feel it as I'm doing this. It also feels wonderful. Cause I mean, you're seeing me now. I feel that. I'm literally feeling myself. My heart is open, and and so I'm coding. If I had any doubt about it, I can tell this feels wonderful. Both on a, you know, it's anchoring it in the way you were saying of
Right.
my body is doing this, and so it's discovering, oh my gosh, maybe being seen, maybe it can feel good. So it's overriding the probably many times that person was seen in a way that didn't feel good, and the decision of no, I prefer not to, it's being replaced in that discovery way, in that playing in a field and literally doing just basic movements like, oh, circling, how does that, it's using the body as language. And I guess it's all, it's coming back for me. I just love the the sense and body based starting point for,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's I think it's also an antidote for the high concept, where I feel like I either approach the world from very high concept or very like or very high tactile. It must be that rather than, often when there's a polarity, it's really like a rainbow. It's actually a circle, and I bet
Mm-hmm.
they back into each other.
Yeah.
I'm imagining this. I'm imagining that.
And the getting really clear on and in touch with the way that your body wants to move and that you want your body to be seen moving. Like,
I don't know that angle. At least, at least I hold it as, yeah. I guess, yeah, yeah. You're
like
being
there's
language.
certain movements that you make that create, that feel like you could make them in the dark and be really happy. And there's
Yeah.
certain movements that if you make where somebody sees them, you know it has an impact on them. So like you're rolling your shoulder,
Yeah, and
right?
I'm playing with it. I'm playing with it
Right?
now.
Right, now this feels good inside myself, but if I kind of do it at you with a particular look, I
Yeah,
know it's
it
got
has
an
a,
impact, right?
yeah, yeah.
And it's a lot more fun if I know you're seeing me,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
It's
Oh,
how like,
absolutely.
right? That,
Absolutely.
but they're movements that are just nice no matter what, and then they're movements that are enhanced when they're seen,
Yes.
right? And I want to give kind of an optical effect when I do it. So there's like that
Yeah.
knowing that all of that takes you out of your higher thinking.
Okay, I love, yeah. So it's the
It brings you out of
revolution.
like this like spiritual bypass stuff and right into your body,
Yeah, yeah.
right present. And for a little bit, a lot of the brain gets quiet.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
And
does.
when the brain gets quiet, one of the things that gets really quiet is the self-doubt.
Yes, it does.
And that place has a lot more rapport with self,
Yeah,
right? So you're finding it, again, finding it through your physical movements that
yeah,
bring you into a rapport with the physical body,
yeah.
but also brings you in rapport with way more of you.
I love that. It's absolutely true. And that even the two things you said of how does it look, you didn't say exactly, but how does it look and how does it feel? I'm constantly, I articulate this, and I'm always inviting, because often in performance, the presiding value in many circles is how does it look? And I come always from how does it feel? And we're going to find the juncture where they meet. But the
If you,
primary for me is how does it feel? And then how does it look gets mixed in a way of craft.
when people watch other people move, when we watch performance,
Yeah.
when we watch somebody who is technically accurate in their performance, but is not having a good time, we don't tend to enjoy the performance.
Amen. That's
And
my,
it doesn't really matter what it is.
yeah, Yeah,
You can think any sports, you can think any dance, you can think of any performance.
it's true.
A musician who is playing an instrument, technically correct,
Yeah,
but is really miserable playing the instrument, it doesn't sound like music to us.
it's true.
The performer has to be in rapport with themselves,
Yeah.
or the more, it's not has to be, but the more in rapport with themselves they are, the more people are drawn into their performance.
Yeah.
And the less the technical matters, although the technical will generally be better.
Everything you said. I'm hiring you, Carla.
So, I mean, you can think of like Olympic athletes.
Yeah.
And the ones that sometimes push it to the edge and fall, you still like can feel the power of their performance. And it's not that they fail that we want to watch. We hurt with them when they fall, but we feel the edge that they went to, and we feel that they just really went for it. And they come out not like bummed, but not devastated. And the ones that hold back a little and out of rapport with themselves are the ones that you can just tell they're going to beat themselves up until the next performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not a lot of fun to watch. They
No.
hurt to watch. And even, you know, some not so good athletes, but put their whole heart into it and are in rapport with themselves, we will watch forever.
Yeah.
You know, some of the more imperfect actors and actresses and performers have our hearts
I
because
think
they're in rapport with themselves when they do it.
the term that gets used that I hear a lot is in the performance world is that they have presence. And I think what they're actually trying to say is, well, there's a posturing kind of presence that's overboard, but when it's that delicious presence, it's rapport. That's that's the thing that's
Yeah.
named, but that word isn't on their menu. Carla, you and I could, what, we could go on, and I've cut this into two, but I think, um, I think we might want to come to a close. But do we try to hit on boom boom trauma versus drip drip trauma, or save it?
Well, we have said something, so we probably need to say just a little bit.
We should say a little bit about
So,
it.
so
Yeah.
just the way to look at it is we often think of and look for understandings of how we are based on what's kind of a boom boom trauma, like a one-time
Yeah.
really explosive something or other incident that explains parts of our lives.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what it is I said to you years ago whenever we
I
first said
know
this.
the
Do
weekend was.
you remember what the words were that I said?
No, I wish I did.
Okay, yeah.
I don't.
Um,
Yeah.
but the drip drip trauma is the little things that happen to us over and over and over again
Yeah.
that build up our expectations in a particular way and
Yeah.
really, really, really form to us a sense of how life is.
And it's just
And
like
they're
an IV. It's like an IV drip. We don't even know, because there's never any moment that we're not kept at a certain like blood
right,
level of it. It's just
right.
constant.
So a parent that is kind of cold and withholding just a little bit could be the most gracious mom on the block. She could throw the best birthday party. She could always have beautiful food. But the child has a sense that if I don't do it the way she wants it, she's going to be just a little bit colder to me. It's not so much that anybody would ever call it abuse. It's not so much that anybody would even necessarily notice except the child and maybe the child's siblings.
Mm-hmm.
But the child comes away feeling like I have to be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
or I have to
Different.
constantly please another one, or
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it comes, some of the traumas are so deep, the wounds are so, so deep, and it doesn't seem like what happened accounts for it.
Yes. It seems
So
incongruous that this could end up feeling like that. That's just, how could that be? Yeah.
a child who every time they brush their own hair, mom adjusts it just a tiny bit,
Oh God, that's a very good example. Not that that was one. I just, that's an illustrative,
right?
really good illustration. Yeah.
Right? That mom or dad always adjusts the clothes a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Or a child who sets the table and then somebody corrects it every time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there is a eroding away of a child's sense of being able to do something for themselves.
Yeah.
And it happens in lots of different ways. It's always not always in a correcting.
Yeah.
It's
No, these are just, there are good examples that communicate. Yeah.
they're very, very, very small things that
Mhm.
are kind of consistently repeated that hurt a tiny bit every time.
Yeah.
Right? So a boom boom trauma is someone got drunk and smashed up the living room and scared the crap out of the whole family.
Yeah.
And when we remember those, we know that was wrong.
Yeah. It's clear. It's very
It's
clear.
really clear. But there's a lot of little traumas, there's a lot of little things that are said or done in families that really hurt, that go to the heart, and we dismiss them as adults as painful. We say it wasn't that big a deal, right? It wasn't that big a deal that my father had to read the newspaper before he said good evening to me when he got home from work. It wasn't that big a deal.
When,
He always talked to us at dinner, but you know, it
uh,
might be fine for the father to come home and read every night when he comes home from work, but there are days when the children need to tell him something before the paper. They just need,
yeah.
and knowing that that's available in an emergency changes things for a child. Right? This is how dad unwinds when he gets home from work. He needs a couple minutes and right. Um, but oh my God, that day the dog got hit by a car and killed and the kid watched it and they want to tell dad and dad has to read the newspaper first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It doesn't feel like it's a big deal because that's what he does. And then as soon as he was done reading the paper, he attended to it. But that one wounds forever.
Hmm.
Um, and what's important to me in these is that we honor the ones that are the drip drip
Yes.
with as much as we do the boom boom.
Yes.
And we recognize, like, you know, if you take one of those plastic butter knives
Hmm.
and you kind of rub it on your arm, it's not going to hurt that much. But after about 1,000 times, you're going to have a huge wound.
It's the frog in hot water.
Yeah,
It's similar. It's similar to that.
yeah. It is just a relentless, like just a small, but it hurts. And we do it to each other sometimes at work and in other places.
Sure.
They're just small things that we do or don't do on a consistent basis.
Hmm.
And we don't notice. If I'm not doing it or I'm doing it, I'm not likely to notice. But you're going to notice. You're going to notice
Hmm.
if I always do something or I never do something that you've asked. And what we'll do is we'll just say, oh, it's not that big a deal. Like, right? But it is. If your partner comes home from work and doesn't make eye contact with you, not that they have to cross the room and come over and get all excited and be all mushy mushy with you, but if they don't make eye contact with you when they walk in the front door,
Yeah.
after a while it starts to wear on you if you're somebody that likes eye contact.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you don't care. But if it's one of those things that's like it just keeps happening or not happening and we don't address it and talk about it, then resentments build and the wound just gets larger and larger and larger. And then one day we've had it and we start a fight over something that has nothing to do with what we're upset about.
Yep.
And we can blow the entire relationship up.
Yeah.
And nobody really knows what it is that ended things.
Yeah. Yeah. The corresponding thing is, so let's say that the little important action didn't happen again and again, whether it was the eye engagement or whatever the thing that was needed. If the person who was wanting that contact, that kind of contact, wasn't getting it, and that person isn't having a robust sense of self and rapport with self, there is it kind of comes back to the reward and punishment. There's a little, makes me think of the tailor story. The man who goes in to the tailor with his one thing is wrong with his jacket. It needs a little fix. And he ends up with having to lift his arm and go, in order for his jacket to fit. So this person is trying to change how they are. It's an indirect way to affect the thing that isn't happening. So, okay, I'm going to be a little more like this. I'll be a little quieter, or I'll be a little more, I'll wear this shirt, or I just, I'll bake them a cake. I'm making it up, whatever it is. I'll do these other things. So then and none of those things get anywhere near what that person wants. So it's in the response also of, oh gosh, like, and then this person who just wanted to have a little eye contact every time when their partner came home from work, then this person is not feeling like themselves anymore. So I'm just saying, I mean, that's a way it spirals. It's another effect of
and oftentimes the person who's not making the eye contact in this example doesn't even know it's wanted.
Probably the vast majority.
And are often like, oh, okay, that's easy. Like sometimes it's really amazing when I do couples work that sometimes like they're really, really upset with each other, and it does come down to something that tiny. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's got a little bit more nuanced than that. But when they both realize, what I often hear is that they both want it.
Wow. Yeah.
And
I believe that.
They don't have a strategy for getting it. So I can give you one example. I had a couple that had 2 kids, and one of the kids just liked attention. And when dad came home, the kid was right in dad's face. Right. Now, the kid had been doing that to mom all afternoon. And mom wanted a break from it. But she'd missed her husband during the day, and she wanted to see him. And he wanted to see her. But this kid was just in both of their faces, and by the time he was done attending to the kid, he then wanted to change his clothes, and then it was dinner time, and then everybody was sitting at the table, and it was like this. And then the wife had some evening like job or something. I can't remember exactly what the details was, but she would leave after dinner, and he'd be alone with the kids. And the couple would feel like they kind of passed each other in the night, and they were both kind of cranky with each other.
Yeah.
And they had no idea how to get around it. And I said, this one is easy. I looked at the father. I said, nobody gets to interact with you until you've changed your clothes. You go to the bedroom and you change your work clothes and you change into your evening clothes. And I said, the only person allowed in the bedroom is mom. And they looked at each other and they smiled and they went, oh, that'll work. And I said, that gives mom a chance to say, the kids have been working me for this all day. Don't say yes. I've been saying no. We got to hold the line on this one. Because that communication wasn't happening. They get a quick interaction, and then they can come out and deal with the family. It's got the caveat of, if there's a crisis happening when he walks in the door, he's not changing his clothes.
Sure, yeah.
But just I got to change out of my work clothes. I'm coming right back out, and I am in service of you. I'm changing into my be at home with the family clothes.
Yeah.
And they just went, oh, we can do that. It was really simple.
That's
And
beautiful.
it just gave them the 30 seconds to communicate as parents that they needed to make contact as a couple, to interact, and they both desperately wanted it.
So love.
And yeah, it was very sweet to watch this. And they had been really, really cranky with each other for months before they came in to work on
Wow.
it.
Wow.
And it was just like a really simple, but it took a while to get down to what it was that each were wanting. And what they were wanting was to connect with each other, but they didn't have a strategy given the situation. And they just needed an idea from outside. I think probably if I just left them with the idea that they wanted to connect when the husband got home, they would have figured something out. I just happened to be there to be able to say, hey, try
I
this.
don't know. They might not have. They might not
But
have.
I found that with a number of couples that there's, especially the reconnect time is sometimes something that they haven't found the choreography for,
Yep.
especially when they're kids. How do we just make contact with each other over the top of the kids while honoring the kids? But
Mhm.
and the kids apparently did quite well with the parents doing that.
Beautiful.
Like they kind of snickered a bit, you know, mom and dad are going to kiss kind of thing. But they also didn't have to watch mom and dad kiss, which they liked. So
All around better.
the kids were old enough that they were like, oh, don't make us watch that, you know.
Carla, I'm so glad that we did this.
Yes, this is fun.
And I want people to know that they can find you and both through NLP Marin for courses and education in all these things we're talking about. If any of this sounded interesting to you and you want more, please go to nlpmarin.com, and there's a wealth of
Yes, we
intro
would love to
classes.
see you. Yes.
Yeah, and Carla does one-on-one sessions, and obviously couples too. And you can remind me of your
You
website.
could find me at the nlpmarin.com. Well, it has a link to my calendar. So,
Awesome.
yep,
Perfect. Okay, all
yep,
right there.
yep.
Carla, stay there. I'm going to say goodbye to the world, and I'll say goodbye to you privately. Goodbye,
Okay.
world. Thank you so much for joining us.